Bonsai Drip.
Hello guys, today for this video we're gonna work on this beautiful Ulmus pumila. Is a variety of Ulmus we have here in Italy and all the Mediterranean region. So we're gonna see how to develop good deciduous tree starting from Yamadori material. Today from Italy, directly from cold Feltre is my town. We just had 40 centimeters of snow in the last few days. So I was shoveling snow away from the garden and taking snow away from my trees. And today I'm gonna give you a little speech demonstration and work with this Italian elm. It's actually a Ulmus pumila. We have a different variety of elms here in Europe. And Ulmus pumila is one kind of the southern variety. So we can find Ulmus pumila in the forest, inland, in all the Mediterranean regions. Actually, this tree comes from Puglia, that is the end of the big boot of Italy. So these trees grows between rocks. And most of the time we can find very good and nice trunks to work with bonsai. So I have a friend who go in the forest and collect these trees for me. They, as I said, they grow between rocks. That's the reason why sometimes the trunk has some flat area, because the trunk was growing pushing against the rock. For example, for this tree, we have a nice double trunk, and the first area was growing on the rocks, so we have some work to do to get this area better. They grow very strong, and when we collect Ulmus, we can kind of cut almost all the roots and just get the basic stump of the tree out of the ground. The cell of the wood, especially the cells that are inside of the soil, they have a very high capacity of regenerating. So as soon as we plant in a nice soil, we normally use 50-50 humus and pumice. We plant the tree in the pot. The tree is kind of a big air layer, so big cutting. So we just plant the tree in the pot, and we use what we call the technique of the black plastic bag. So we bag the stump with plastic to hold the moisture, and in the same time we put the tree inside of the greenhouse. So with the high amount of moisture inside of the bag and the temperature along the end of winter rising up inside of the greenhouse, the cell of the wood will be active and ready to shoot out roots in the pot and new branches outside. Imagine that this tree that I'm working today was only collected a year ago. So normally we collect during winter, when the tree is partially dormant and the temperature outside are lower. If we collect with this technique in summer, the tree will die because the dehydration of the cell will be way too far until the tree will be able to shoot a root and then start getting moisture from the roots, the new roots, to give energy to the branches. You see how vigorous, I go around and show you the tree, how vigorous the tree grew all over the trunk. You can see the part and the cuts from when the tree was collected. So generally on the deciduous tree, all the unnecessary branches, they were flat cut at the collection. We don't leave any stump as we do for conifer. When I go and collect pine, I always leave a stump of a branch, because in the future I will transform that part in a gin. But normally we don't do gin on deciduous for two reasons. It's rare to see gin on elms, For example, in nature, because the wood is very soft, and in a short amount of time in nature that wood will rot away. What we see is some hollow part, because when the tree starts dying in some area, what happens is that the tree would rot, and it will start creating what we call uro, that is a hollow part. So we flat cut, and then, as we're gonna do today, we go through with some carving tool and we create some hollow part. Or when we wanna create the transition from the original trunk and the new shoot that will rebuild the trunk line and the apex of the tree, we're gonna just remove that wood, and then in the next season let grow a runner until this part will recreate the connection and the tree will reheal the cambium over the old cut. So basically this is the general work we do on Ulmus. Ulmus pumila is one of the best variety here in Europe, because apart being so generous, has also very small leaves, so we don't have to do a lot of work to reduce the leaves size. They have already nice small leaves. And the other thing, even if the tree grows very, very strong, the internode between the different buds stay nice and tight. That is another important thing for bonsai. A lot of deciduous trees have internodes too long, so it's always difficult to prune back and recreate a nice and short taper on the branches. You know, when we create taper of the branch, as short is the internode, easier will be let grow the branch, cut back to 2, and redevelop 2 by 2 all the ramification. Go through and select the primary branches. Is just a first selection of the branches. So I will figure out which branches I will develop for the next structure of the tree. Generally, when I start with the raw material, I give the first shot to the stronger branches, because I'm more, they are more reliable to be always strong and grow, because in the first 2 or 3 years, what we're doing, we let them grow, especially the lower one, to create the thickness we want. A mistake that we did in the past was try to style the tree and prune everything, and then end up in 5, 6, 7 years where every branch is the same size. But we have to create the hierarchy from the lower branches up to the top, thinking that when a tree grows in nature, the lower branches are the older one. So they are also the thicker one, and they are the one having more kind of the deciduous shape, so the one holding the weight of all the rest of the ramification. While when we go up in the top, we try to give energy and spread the energy of the tree between more branches, more little branches, that they will open up like kind of a broom. Differently from a conifer, when we style everything down, here from kind of the middle part up, we tend to style everything up, because it's the natural way how the deciduous tree grow. It's very different to style a deciduous and to style a conifer. On a conifer, I can bend crazy a branch to recreate a green mass. Here, I need to start everything from scratch. If I don't have a branch where I need, I can always graft, either approach graft or track graft, but I can create the branch in the position. I will never bring a branch from this position or higher down, because I want to create a green mass here. I will better graft the branch in this position where the tree is kind of naked, coming from the back, thread graft through the tree and create the branch in the position I want. This is a technique we use a lot on maples, elms, also quercus, all these very strong variety of deciduous where you can drill a hole, put the branch through when it's winter, so there are no leaves, and then when the branch will start grow and the tree also will start reheal, they will fuse, and in 1 year, even sometimes also in 6 months, you can get the branch in the position you want. As I said, the problem when we collect deciduous, older is the deciduous, less capacity that the tree has to shoot from all over the trunk, because the cell of the wood is older, so is less reactive to renovate itself. That's the reason why most of the time a lot of new growth comes out from the part that were cutted, because creating the cut we kind of refresh the capacity of creating column and renovate the wood. That's the reason why the tree shoot out. It's funny, I work all over the world, and in Brazil they collect a beautiful variety of deciduous tree, is called Caliandra, and a technique they find out Caliandra has a very rough bark, is from a desertic area of Brazil, but very beautiful foliage and beautiful flower. So they find out that when they cut the Caliandra, the tree is only shooting from the cut. So they start digging with a little chisel. When they collect the tree, they dig some holes all over the trunk in the position they want branches to come out. So doing that, they kind of scratch the cambium of the tree, and the reaction of the tree is to shoot the branches from that position. And it's a very interesting technique. We still have to kind of use here in Italy. I did a little bit this year with some of the quercus oak that I collect, because also oak tend, because it has this very rough and old bark, normally tend also to grow out only from the flat cut, the area that were cutted. So I did some scratch on the bark and see what happened, if that technique that they use in Brazil is also good for our species here in Europe. So, as I said, I will go through steps. First of all, I will select the branches I need. Then we're gonna do some work on the Deadwood, and then I'm gonna have a couple of my students to put some wire for the final opening. We can't consider styling, it's just open up and giving the branches a little bit of the first movement, but is what I want to do. Always in the first years of growth, I need to check which branches are stronger than other to build my structure. And second, if now I go through and I leave only, let's say, 10 branches on this tree, I will make the tree energy go down, and the reaction in spring when the tree has to restart all the process of photosynthesis and regrow will be lower. So I leave more branches so the tree has more hormones inside and will always be willing to grow. Okay? What I normally do in area where I have 2 branches and a third one, I cut the central one. I try to leave all the lower branches, as I said, because as you can see, I have a lot of branches here, good amount of branches in the middle part, but very few branches in the lower part. You can see either here and this side, we have just a few big branches. So I will keep all of the branches in the lower part and just start selecting more from the intermediate one and intermediate section of the tree, and a lot I will reselect in the upper part. I need always to select who is my leader, so which is the branch that is rebuilding the trunk line, because the transition between base of the tree, section, and then the new section I will rebuild is very important. So if I have 2 or more branches competing to be the leader, and especially if they are very close one to the other, I need to remove and leave just the one showing me more strength. So I keep doing my selection. Everything, especially from the upper area, everything is very small and weak. I get rid of. I don't need those branches here too. This is also competing with the apex. I need to leave another branch in the side, because these also will help me to recreate the column. Here I have nice inner branches in this area, in the back, so you can see here I have many branches coming from the same spot, so I keep the 2 lower one, and here I will just go through and select, leaving just a few. If I have weak branches, as I said, I will remove them. And then you see I have some weak branches here in the lower part. I don't touch them, and see eventually next year they can start developing, and I can develop some nice low branches for the back. You see the back of the tree at the moment is a little bit naked from the base up, almost at half of the tree. I will need some branches here, so I see if I can develop from some of these little one, or eventually I can always get one of the branches from another side and graft here in the position I want. So you see, I work my way along the tree, just spinning the tree and checking the branches, going back to the front and imagining what I really need and in which position I will open the structural branches. And doing that, I keep spinning the tree and reselecting what is necessary and what I will remove that is not necessary for the future development of this tree. As I said, you see some area like here where the tree was chopped, many branches came out from the same spot, so I need to select. If someone, we are still in the intermediate, if someone is too strong, I will remove, because otherwise it's no good to leave all weak branch. It's no good to leave strong branches in the top, because they will still keep all the energy, and also they will suck all the energy from all the branches around. So I always, by pruning, try to redistribute the energy on the different areas of the tree. Because if I leave a branch that is too strong with some weak one around, those weak one will never get energy enough. So you see, I work my way through, I'm going up, removing everything is not necessary. We have a lot of nice branches. Ants are very, very generous, as you can see. Actually, the guy tend to prune the tree during the season, at least one, because he always like to develop more branches from the trunk. So generally what's happened is when the tree get collected, he shoot out the first flash of branch. So the guy does a little brief pruning of that area, so the tree restore the energy and shoot more branches also from the trunk. So we just don't end up with like 5 or 6 branches, but we want to start with 60 branches to end up with 15 good branches for the future structure of the tree. So it's always moving up a strategy to create everything we need. The other thing, when I go around, I always look to leave branches in every area of the tree. I don't want to have an area that is too crowded, differently from an area where I cut too much. The idea of the final shape of a deciduous is having the beautiful crown all filled in. So that's the reason why we need to start with good, strong branches all over. There is always a time eventually to go through and reselect some more branches. Here we have another one I don't need, here. And then at the end, here in this apex, that will be the apex of the main tree, you see I have many branches coming from the same spot, so I need to go through and reselect some, especially here. So I keep, you see, the more thinner one, and I remove some of the ones that are too strong, again, for the reason because this part for the apical dominance will be always willing to have more strength rather than the lower part. It's interesting and it's funny too how the work we do on the deciduous tree is almost you know, the reverse of what we do on conifer, because on conifer we always willing to have at least as much branches as we want to be able to create in one shot the final image of the bonsai. Differently from the deciduous, when we have always to start from nothing and create everything from the structure, the primary structure up, out. So when we collect the Amadori, the only important thing basically is the trunk, because you can imagine this tree already had branches all over the trunk, but those branches were too big for the future of a bonsai. They were too thick, or they were too long, they were too straight, they had no movement. But when we start with this branch, and now is the perfect time to do, especially when they reach this size, we can start creating a nice movement that we want to have for the future branch of the tree. So this kind of a wavy movement, either side by side, but also down and up, because as I said, the difference between how we create the main branches of an elm and how we create the main branches of a spruce or a pine or a juniper is that pine or a juniper, everything from the point where they start, they go down, and going down they move side by side like a little wave and come forward. What we do on the deciduous tree, the lower branches, they can go down a little bit in the first section, but then they have to wave up, because I always say the deciduous tree hold the weight like this, and the conifer, they hold the weight in this position. So that's the main difference when we start. And we have always to have in mind that, otherwise we see so many trees worked like a pine, and they are not. They are, you know, a myrtus or an elm, and it's ugly to me. We have to respect the way how the tree grows in nature. The nature of the tree has always to be respected. Here, as you can see, is the part where the tree was growing against the rocks. So this made the base of the tree to be kind of flat in one part and concave in the other. So one of the thing I love on the deciduous tree is when they have these hollow trunks. So I want to recreate a little bit of a hollow part here in the front of the tree. And then I will do some work by reducing and reshaping a little bit the part where the tree was cut at the collection. So the first part will be opening up the area. So what I normally do, mi passi un rudiban per favore? Grazie. What I normally do, I remove the bark from the area where I'm gonna dig in with the electrical carving machine. I do that because I don't want to struggle with the carving machine because the bark is very fibrous, so it will go through the carving tool bit and will not make the bit to work perfectly. So I go through and with the hand carving tool, I remove the bark. You see also the hand carving tool struggle a little bit to remove the bark. You see the bark is very fibrous, you see here, and is full of moisture. It's almost like a gum, so it's difficult to remove, but I need to do that, otherwise I will struggle even more with my electrical carving tools. So you see I remove the area, there is a lot of moisture inside, I need always to clean the tool. We can cut away all the roots and we can cut away all the branches, and the tree will survive and will be even happier to regrow everything. Also, when I collect quercus, I tried along the year to maintain some of the original branches, and I see that when I cut away all the branches and just leave stumps, the tree will regrow stronger than when I leave some branch with some original buds. Because the energy is in the trunk. When I collect pines, when I collect other conifers, I have to bring home as much roots as possible. Otherwise, the tree will never survive, because the energy of a pine is in the roots. If I repot a pine and I clean all the root ball, the tree will suffer, because the pines, they grow in symbiosis with mycorrhiza, and mycorrhiza is responsible to make the tree stronger. So you see, it's pretty evident the nice double trunk of the tree. Already I select this front because as you can see, the trunks already move side and they tend to come back forward. You can see here, this is evidently the back of the tree. We have kind of still a ugly part here that luckily from the other side we don't see. And the main point on a first styling here is to recreate the trunk line. That's the reason I said I will leave this branch to grow, to recreate the trunk line, and the same I have here. Luckily I have a good transition, especially in the main trunk and the mother trunk. I have a good transition between the base, the first section, second section, third section, and up to the top. Here I still have to recreate at least the final transition between here and up here. Otherwise this will look not so nice. Here in this part is the flat part, you see, is that because it's the part that was against the rock, so the tree died back, okay? Here. And here is the edge. I'm just eating away the edge of the part. Here I have a little bit of a concave area where some branches probably already in nature, they start growing and then they died. So I have an area with a kind of a little knob. So I can generally try to connect these two areas together. And this will be, you know, the outside shape of my uro. The goal is to leave a nice cambium around, so the tree can start rehealing almost inside of the uro. And then from that point over, I will work with carving tools to really dig in deeper in this area. We never make shari on a deciduous tree because shari most of the time is not natural because as I said, the wood is so soft inside that as soon as in nature something happen to a part like this, in 1 or 2 growing season, this area will already start rotting because the wood will absorb, the dead wood will absorb moisture without being able to release that moisture, and that will create inside a rotting system that will hollow up that part. So I want to just go in a little bit more in this area here, in the main tree, and then I will start digging a little bit more deep into the wood using some electrical carving tool. But you see already how connecting these two parts, I can accentuate a little bit this movement, getting rid of this problem, and also here where I have a little bit of, let's say, a bottle shape. You see the transition between the base and this section. I have a little bit of a bottle shape. Doing that uro and opening up some deadwood, I can kind of create a distracting point by creating a focus point in the base of the tree. I have also a chisel eventually, if I have to go around some area I can't go with the other hand tool. Is always important, and this will do at the end of the work of the deadwood. I will always cut with a nice sharp knife the edge of the cambium from the transition between the living part and the dead part using a knife, so I can obtain a better rehealing in spring. We don't want to leave like the fiber all over, because otherwise the rehealing will be not so nice aesthetically. I went around this area. Here we can see where some branches died in nature and the tree tried already to reheal around. So put in evidence this area is interesting. We give a little bit of a nice point here. I still have a branch here. I can go a little bit around. There is a kind of already a little bit of a more depressed area here. And now the difficult part is start to imagine how we want to shape this. So what I would like to do, and this is something that normally happens in nature, the hollow parts always start from a branch that died. So generally a branch like this die, and then you see this branch, the wood was lost already, and this black area is already an area where the wood is dead. So from here in nature, the natural consequence is that the wood start dying and going inside of the tree. So you will start creating, you see, in a spongy area like this one, it will start creating a little bucket and be always moisture. And this part will go inside and start rotting the wood inside before there will be no wood and will open the part. So to imagine this process and to rebuild this process here, can I have a black marker? I can start opening up my hollow area, and every time we have also to leave some part for the transition, because what happens in nature when the tree start getting hollow is that the tree is always trying to reheal over the dead wood. And along the centuries, that part die back, and the rehealing is always further and further. So if we do here our uro, We leave a transition part that we can also smooth out with the carving tool, and then we'll give a little bit more of a natural feeling to the dead part that we are building. We just don't carve just a hole. That's boring. We need to create a story, as for when we create the tree, but also when we give flavor to the single part that we create. We have to create a story. So we imagine that the wood start rotting from here and went down. There are many people doing good work, so I think it's good always to try to learn from everyone, and then every one of us will have his points. I like to mix the work with hand carving tool with electrical one. I think electrical one are very good to kind of remove a lot of deadwood, and the hand tool you can do more detail work and refinement eventually. Then depend, for example, I don't like to carve conifers with electrical carving tool. The difference between the fiber of the wood from a elm or a deciduous tree to a conifer is totally different. I can't create deadwood by stretching the fiber of the wood in this elm, because there is basically not the same fiber as I have on a pine. But where I have a piece of a branch on a pine, I always like to work manually and stretch the fiber of the wood by creating a natural shape and reducing the taper of that gene. That will give me a very natural result where I almost don't see the man intervention. Here will be impossible. In an area like this, even if I go with a hammer and chisel, will be almost impossible to remove the amount of wood I can remove just by hitting the wood with electrical carving tools. The other thing, I don't do it today, but generally when I do deadwood with carving tools, I always mix it with the fire. So I burn the deadwood at the end, or as soon as the deadwood will dry out, because doing that I can remove almost totally the marks of the electrical carving tools, because that's the main problem. Especially when we go against the fiber of the wood, we create marks that we have to remove, otherwise they will be always the sign of the man intervention in our bonsai, and we don't want them aesthetically. So the way I use this tool is a little bit circular while I go up, so I don't drill lines, but I drill circulars and up, so I can extend the drilling in a bigger area, not leaving lines where it will be difficult to reconnect one with the other later. If my plan is to have my uro higher and not directly connected with the inner part of the soil, it's always better to leave this kind of a ring. This part will always protect the deadwood, because the deadwood is not in contact with the soil and will not suck the moisture all the time. Now that I remove a little bit the flat area in the center, I need to change my tool. I need a smaller one, and with the smaller one I can keep drilling inside. It's very similar to the previous one, but just smaller, and I don't have the bit coming here. So now we have living wood, the first edge here of the deadwood, and then the first part of the hole. So now the idea, if we want to give an ancient image of this, is to keep drilling just in some spots and create a more deeper area. So the idea is giving the perception of this wood die back, and in the meantime the tree always retry to reheal. So starting from the old wood that is here, create the first rehealing, and then the tree die back, and always the trunk will open up while the tree is growing. So the next part, I will try to go a little bit deeper here. So I always leave what we can call a lip, and then the transition to the next layer, to the next level, deeper. So we went in, we can go a little bit more. I had another tool, but we can do a little bit more with the refinement to dig in here with wood. Now what I will do, I will take the Dremel. This is another smaller bit. I can start outside and smooth all the transition between the deadwood to create this part, this hollow part, nice and smooth. So we start by opening, and then we did the transition between this area and the more deeper ones inside. Always when I work, I create round parts, always round, because it's the way how the deadwood die back, because we have always to imagine these and these were the core parts of some branches that start deteriorating, dying back, and then dying back until inside of the trunk. And the same happened by this branch reconnecting. This is the way the deadwood kind of rot out in the deciduous trees. There is still some work. I can kind of do only a demo of 5 hours by, creating more layers and cleaning. So you see, I can still go in with some carving tool, remove some part, some edge. You see, we went almost in the part where the two trees fuse originally. These trees start growing, and here you can see the line where the two parts start fusing. So there is still some, part to get rid of here, but obviously we still have some work to do with the wiring and everything. So the idea is in the future finish going down here, so this can be the natural part where the water will go out, but the good thing will be to get a nice rehealing here in this edge. So doing that, as I said, I can always protect the wood by being in contact directly with the soil. I'm gonna just remove some more fiber on a conifer than on a deciduous, because as I said, there is a lot of moisture inside, so the carving tools struggle, even if they are really powerful bits and machine, they tend to struggle when they reach some areas of the Deadwood. The other good thing is that, you know, we don't need to think to finish just the work in once. We can always, you know, go and retouch the wood while, you know, the tree is maturing. So we have always to imagine that this is just a first kind of intervention, a first step. But you see, also by just cleaning with my hand carving tool, I can dig more inside of the wood and create nice layers. So I have, you see the layer between the two trunks, here the hollow part, and then the outside layer that is going and running all around my big that part. It's always important, as I said, and this is what I try to do with the last Dremel. It's always important to try to remove all the very geometrical and very rigid edges that we create with the big carving tools, because obviously when we dig in, even if we try, I always try to go around to smooth the lines, but we always tend to go a little bit more deep and create these geometrical lines that are very ugly because they don't look natural. In nature, we'll never see that on Deadwood. So it's always good to go through a little bit with hand carving tools, good knife. You see I have a nice knife. I can go inside and still remove some part and smooth out some angle. This is very, very good. Okay. So now you see we have this interesting focal point that is the connection between the two trunks, and then the next step will be to remove a little bit of the Deadwood here to correct that reverse taper, and also the other thing I want is to remove some wood from this area here. So doing that, I can rebuild also taper up to the leader of my second trunk. After that, we'll do a little question step while my students will clean the tree and we get ready for wiring. So I remove this section here. Now I go with the smaller one, a little bit more inside to get rid of this other part, okay? And then with the smaller one too, I will work on that area. Let me cut this branch here. That's it. I was able a little bit to give a line up to the new apex, and then the tree from this branch will start rehealing, and in time will close this gap. Can do a little bit more here actually, just. And then you see.
It is already looking nice.
Very good. So you see I remove the old flat cut here, recreating the taper. So in time I can get a nice rehealing by the two sides because the energy goes up to the leader and this part can close. I was also removing Deadwood from here. So this part will always also regrow in the whole kind of a, you know, empty area I made. and so from the front this will look nicer, and I can rebuild up a little bit more tape. There is some work to do here, I will do in the future, but now I wanna start with the wiring. I have here two of my students, so I can entertain you and talking about the process while they will start wiring. So we can put the tree a little bit more back. So I already select the wire for them, so all the sizes. I think this is enough. Let me see. So Fernando will be doing first the protection of the edge of all the area we eat with the Dremel, with the cut paste, and William will start wiring. So when I wire the Cetus tree, I always use aluminum wire. When I wire conifers, I use copper. You want me to talk a little bit about the differences and the ways and the strategies of my wiring? Aluminium wire, sorry?
Quick question. We want to hear about what other kind of trees you guys bonsai in Italy.
Ah, okay. Which other kind of trees? Oh, we have many kind of trees. So, here where I live, in the middle of the Dolomites, we have a lot of mugo pines. If you go in my YouTube channel, Mauro Stemberger, actually I just published last night a video about the work I did of one of my older mugo pine. So if you go on YouTube, you can see that video. So we have mugo pine, Scots pine, larches, Sabina juniper, and spruce. These are the main conifers trees suitable for bonsai that we have here in the Dolomites. Then I live in a valley, so in a kind of a lower elevation, and here we have a lot of the deciduous tree as well. So we start with beech, carpinus. We either have kind of we call white carpinus and black carpinus. White is much better for bonsai because it is more reliable in terms of branches. Black carpinus is a little bit more tricky because it tends to lose branches. And then we have elms, field maples, and many other deciduous, but mainly those are the main species. We have quercus as well and prunus as well. So these are the main species we use for bonsai here. But most of my collection is conifers. I have a lot of pines. I love pines. So in terms of wiring, as you see, William already started wiring the tree. We always start from the lower branches and we wire up to the top. The most important thing is to create the anchor. So in a tree like this where we have a pretty big trunk, we don't go all the way around the trunk, but William start the transition between two branches more or less the same size. He create his anchor against the trunk and then going and wiring the two direction, so one branch clockwise and another branch, the other branch counterclockwise, he wired the two branches out. You see, we are using a wire that is more or less a third of the size of the branch because we need in this phase of work, we need a little bit of a strength to start giving that wavy movement I said we want to donate to the branches of a deciduous tree. So again, differently from what we do when we wire conifers with copper. Copper is stronger, so for the same size branch we can use a smaller gauge of wire. So here we use, as I said, the proportion of a third. On a conifer, when we wire with copper, we use the proportion of a third. William, starting from the lower branches, will keep going up in this side, and try to wire two branches the same size and have a nice connection. This will help me at the end when I have to put everything in position to be reliable to the anchor. So when I move a branch, I stabilize the tension to a strong part and I don't risk to damage that branch because when I have to put tension, that tension will damage part of the branch or the base of the branch because the connection is weak. This is very important when we learn how to wire, is one point that we have always to keep in mind. The other thing is always have in mind that when we build the branches, we use the rule of 2. Always split the branch in 2 while we go out. Also with the wire, we have to remember that a piece of wire has to connect 2 branches. Always 2. Not one branch, one wire. Otherwise, the connection will be weak and we use too much wire. Wiring is stressful for the tree, so better is our wiring, less stress we give to the tree. The shape give the shape to the branches using all the fingers I still have. So doing that, I can press and push the different part of the branch and change the movement I have. All the branches from inside, I start already putting up. This is a low branch that I want to develop, so I need to give a little bit of movement, and then especially the last part, I need to let it face up, so that branch will develop faster and thicker. It's always important working with my hands and holding, especially when the anchor is a little bit short, for the reason I said originally. We don't want to go all the way around, so we do anchor short, and then when I move the branches, I put them together by holding and giving a little bit of support. So I move the branches in the different position. So now, as I said, the main goal is to make all the branches to fill the different spaces and different height, while I go up. Again, as for when I was selecting the branches, I start from the lower part and I work my way up, giving a general, you see, a general positioning. I don't still cut any length on the branches, I'm just positioning and opening up, giving movement. Only at the end, when all the branches will be in position and I will have the clear idea of the shape, I can start shorting some of the top branches. I will never short them now because I still don't see the final shape of the tree. So for now, everything you see, I open everything and move in the different position. I do for one side and then I move in the other side, sorry. And I do the same. Especially on the thicker branches, it's important that when I manipulate to give the position, I have always to play with the direction of the wire. So while I bend the branch, I also twist in the direction how the branch was wired. Doing that, I use the twisting of the wire to close to the branch, and that will hold the fiber. Because if I move the branch in a different position, in the opposite direction as the wire, I risk that the wire will get loose, and then eventually the branch will break in some point. So everything will open up from the trunk imaging. I always imagine that my branches are like the sunlight. So starting from a point and opening up in all the different direction, trying to not make branches competing for the same position. So you see, first of all, I give a basic opening to all the branches, creating movement and setting them in the position. And then I go back in front of the tree and I restart again from the lower part and see if I need to short some, if I need to move other. You see, I just work around the tree, shaping. Lift up these branches while I give movement to the other. Here we have a big one, almost in the front. Need to turn the tree just a second so I can give movement coming in this negative, and then again lifting up here. Same for this one here. This tree is going back to the greenhouse and will stay there for all winter, and then as soon as the buds will start opening in spring, I will hit with a fertilizer a little bit high in nitrogen. Is a fertilizer that is 845. So this will give the tree a good kick to start growing nice and strong in spring. And then I will have to check on the wiring to not allow the wire to bite in around, let's say, early May, end of April, early May. And so if I will see some piece of wire already biting in, I will have to remove it. Also, if I see some part getting too strong, and especially in the upper part of the tree, I will prune it back. And then generally, to develop the deciduous a little bit faster, what I do a defoliation in early June. So in early June I defoliate completely the tree, and this will produce on the tree kind of a second spring. And by doing that, I can develop in 1 year the foliage that the tree will develop in 2. So every year will be kind of 2 years. So you see how I start positioning all the branches from the lower one, and then waving nicely up, feeling all the different spots. You see, try to avoid branches that are kind of crossing. And now the lower one, as I said, I want to keep longer. I will prune the central ones like this. I always look when I prune to leave a bud facing up for the next development. And I will prune a little bit more aggressive the top by keeping the first waving of the section. You can see. Yeah, that's the reason why I said that I will keep the tree in the greenhouse for winter, because obviously manipulating the tree and doing this work is also stressful. So imagine if I put the tree outside now and we have a very cold temperature, this will absolutely affect the branches, so I don't want to risk to lose good ramification that will be, very good for the future of this tree. So generally elms, as you can see, are very strong trees, so they have no problem at all about dying back for this type of work. So I feel confident that this work we did today is actually not affecting at all the tree. Obviously we have to be careful always in the aftercare. We want always to, eventually later on in the season protect the deadwood and also don't allow the deadwood to just rot by itself. But generally, I'm sure next year this column will start naturally rehealing and will produce a nice column to protect itself, the area where we dig today. So it's no problem at all. So you see, we have already kind of a shape here going down. We can imagine these branches getting thicker. Probably more of the branches, especially in this part, will be selected, as I said, in the future. You see, one every three will be removed. But we have already a nice structure moving out naturally. Also this has to grow, this part. You see that we still don't have size on these branches. We have already some nice branches in the top, good movement. Because this is a double trunk, obviously we don't have many branches here, because this tree that is considered the younger one, as soon as it start developing under the thicker one, all the branches naturally in nature will move outside. That's the reason I kept this branch kind of crossing the front, also to distract in the future a little bit from this section that I can't change. So hopefully another branch come out here. I have probably a little bud, so I can get another branch. I can create two branches distracting from this section that is a little bit the boring section of the entire tree. But let me see. I think we did a pretty good job. And come guys. So sorry. Thank you to my students, William and Ferdinando. And I don't know if there is any more question, but the work is done. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much to the Dallas Bonsai Society to sponsor it. If you are part of a club or an association and would like me to have a live demo for your club, please contact me to this email address and we can make it happen.